We'll be discussing about telecounseling for women facing violence. So let's look at the learning objectives. What is telecounseling? Why is telecounseling important for women facing violence? The basic guidelines of telecounseling. How to do telecounseling for women facing violence? What are the benefits of telecounseling? To understand the challenges involved in telecounseling. So let's understand what is telecounseling. It's basically a psychosocial support provided via a phone or secured online platform. It may include video sessions, text messages, telephone calls, or a combination of these. Why is telecounseling needed? So women who face domestic violence may have a lot of restrictions in going out or difficulty in leaving children behind. And as we all know, and as we are living in this COVID-19 pandemic, and we have undergone lot of lockdowns and lot of restrictions on physical contact where travel was not possible, where telecounseling became very important. And also women who have faced sexual violence may not be willing to come to the OSCs for fear of stigma, shame, or other physical health problems. And again, where telecounseling becomes very important. What are the basic skills for telecounseling? One is empathetic responding. It's important for the counselor to look at the caller's experience from their perspective and communicate and validate their feelings. And it's very important to also have a very non-judgmental attitude, to be aware of their own biases and not to judge the client or not to blame the client. Active listening. It's very difficult to show active listening through phone or through phones especially. But however, we can communicate active listening by using phrases like her, I'm listening, please continue, and validate the client's experience. Reflection of feelings. Using statements like, I can sense that you are feeling hurt by your husband's response, to be considerate of the client's feeling, and also to paraphrase during the interview. Paraphrase mainly the key points so that the client understands that you are actively listening to the client's distress. What are the guidelines in telecounseling? So first is to discuss about recording the sessions, that the client will not be able to record the sessions. And counselors can disable data protection and other data recording settings for the confidentiality issues. This very important thing is that the safety protocol has to be shared in the first session itself. Consent to be taken in the initial part of the interview, where you can explain to the client that the photo of a written document, where they can send a photo of a written document of the consent, or verbally sent via email or a chat, which can be recorded. Only the consent part can be recorded. For example, if the family calls, the information may be provided only if the women consents, and this must be checked when alone and when safe. To be non-judgmental and do not show any kind of personal biases towards the client. To have adequate knowledge about the devices used. Example, text messages, we might be very familiar about. If we are having a video session or a Zoom session, we have to have adequate knowledge. And to also have adequate knowledge about the issue, gender-based violence and other legal issues before we provide care to the client. So let's look at the safety protocol in telecounseling. We have to be very cautious. Telephone calls may be monitored by the abusers. Safety protocol should be discussed in the first session itself and not to delay that. And to have a no callback policy as it may pose a threat to safety. Ask the survivors to call back if it gets disconnected. And it's very important for the counselor not to call back because the perpetrator can be around. Ask survivors to delete call records from the call history of the phone once they keep the phone. To establish a code or a red flag phrase where the client and the counselor is aware about that. For example, you can use any kind of phrase, example, water. So if the client says water, that there is a threat to safety where everyone has to be alert. And any requested callback from the counselor should be accompanied by a safety plan. So what do you say when we speak about safety plan? Like what exactly do you say? So you can mention that you can talk as much as or as little as you want. There is no pressure to talk. Can I continue this call? Answer an yes or no. It's very important to tell this because they might not have much time to explain of whatever is going. Only if we need detailed information, then we can have open-ended questions, or it's good to have yes or no questions, especially in telecounseling. Is it safe to talk now? Answer an yes or no. If someone comes and talk to me as if I'm your friend or cut the call as wrong number, you can save this number in a friend's name. Delete the number once you keep the phone down. What are the ground rules to maintain boundaries? So we beforehand, it's very important to discuss about the availability of the counselor, that when you will be available. It's good to give exact timings when you will be available to take their calls or to reply to their messages. And the duration of sessions, whatever is feasible with you and the client, it's important to discuss that beforehand itself. And the routine of responding to messages, that you may not be available throughout to reply to their messages, and only you will be replying to the messages only during a crisis situation, and also depends on the content of the message. And there is absolute no to contact over social media. And it's good to explain the alternative ways of contacting in case of technical issues, whether you can give your office number or any other phone number where you'll be able to reach. How to work with the family members. So session with the perpetrator or other family members only if the client consents. Contact other support systems where there is threat to safety. And when you are contacting the support system, it's very important that client is also around so that the client is aware of everything what is happening, and definitely to maintain confidentiality. How to deal with the crisis intervention. So first, introduce yourself, take consent, mention confidentiality, assess safety, share maximum information and inputs. Example, the support systems, the helpline numbers, immediately where they can reach out for help in the first session itself. Because, for example, it's very important to mention in the first session, because sometimes the client may not be able to reach you for the second session for various reasons. Suicide risk assessment is also important. Create a safety plan, explore for social support, make referrals and provide necessary resources. What not to do in telecounseling. Do not call the client back. Wait until they get back to you. The abuser can be around. It becomes very difficult if the abuser is around. So it's important that we don't call back the client. Do not record the telecounseling sessions. Do not use the information from the sessions for any kind of research purpose. Also, not to give any kind of incomplete or misleading information. Do not provide false reassurances. For example, you'll be able to provide this much of support to that client. So to mention that directly to the client, and not to tell that you will be able to help in all the ways. So whatever is possible and whatever is practical, you'll be stating that. And do not assume that you have understood the caller. Let's look at the benefits of telecounseling. So it provides access to immediate support during a crisis. Case management and crisis support can be provided remotely. This is very important. Confidentiality is maintained. It's cost effective. For example, people may have to travel far off places, and they might have a lot of financial constraints, and they might not be able to afford traveling expenses, where telecounseling is beneficial, and telecounseling can reach a larger population. Stigma from seeking help can be reduced. Accessible to all groups, adolescents, elderly, and marginalized population. And continuity of services is ensured. Telecounseling can help in coordinating follow-ups, communication during a crisis. What are the limitations of the telecounseling? It's not an alternative for in-person counseling, so we have to be aware of that. So telecounseling is not, we may not be able to continue telecounseling throughout. So at some point of time, it's very important to see the client in person. The scope of non-verbal communication and behavioral observation is eliminated, that we don't have eye-to-eye contact, which is a very important, which plays a very important role during our communication with the client, may not allow the counselors for providing comprehensive services. There can be network problems. And another fear is that there is presence of perpetrator. Let's see when not to do telecounseling. If the client is actively suicidal, expressing active suicidal ideas, and it becomes very difficult to continue with telecounseling. But however, it's very important to look at the suicidal risk and provide helpline numbers, and to tell the client to get in contact with a mental health professional. But it might be difficult to continue with telecounseling. At some point of time, it's good to see the client in person. And when there is unsafe environment, that is when perpetrator is around, and in case of post-traumatic stress disorder. These are the references where we have taken the material from. Thank you.